What's up beautiful people, and welcome or welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Crystal and this is Bond Book Reviews, and today we're going to be telling you how to win if you are on Team Haddonfield. In all seriousness though, this is a recommendation video for anyone that wants to steal from any of the other teams that aren't Team Haddonfield. If you want suggestions for books that you can read for Team Haddonfield for the Camp Crystal Lake Readathon, then you can head over to my other video, which I will have in the cards above and linked down below. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about when it comes to Camp Crystal Lake Readathon, the announcement video will be down below as well. But it is a readathon hosted by the lovely Barb over at Barb's Bookland, and I am team captain for Team Haddonfield. And today we're going to be jumping into some various suggestions for books you can read for other prompts within the readathon from other team captains to help you steal and gain extra points for your team. I will be doing 5 suggestions for each prompt from various genres. A lot of these aren't actually thrillers or scary books at all. So let's dive on in. We will start with Team Dracula. So for Team Dracula, our first prompt is features a vampire. Well, obviously the obvious one is the Twilight series, but I'm here to give you some suggestions that aren't the Twilight series. So we have A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness, Fledgling by Octavia E. Butler. Anything by Octavia E. Butler is on point. The Southern Book Club Guide to Slaying Vampires, which is by Grady Hendrix. This one, if you can, try and get the audiobook, it definitely adds to the vibe. Salem's Lot by Stephen King, because I know a lot of the people that are participating in this readathon are trying to read a lot of Stephen King, and it's even fitting because Barb from Barb's Bookland, who's hosting this, is trying to read as many Stephen Kings as she can in October, so Salem's Lot could work. And lastly, we have Noz for a 2 by Joe Hill, which is actually Stephen King's son, if I believe. But anyways, for Has a Red Cover, you could do Gracier by Kim Leggett. Obviously, it's not a completely red cover, but there is red on the cover. This is a dystopian, which is one of my favorite reads of the year when I read it. You could do The 10 Best Days of My Life, which has red on the spine as well as on the title. And this is a contemporary romance, I believe, but it is very, very funny, quick, easy read. So that would definitely be a good one if you were trying to steal and get one last book in. If you were looking for a historical fiction, you could do Sisters of the Resistance, which has a red dress as well as red on the spine and the back. And this is a historical fiction following the, what are they called? The French Resistance in Paris, and they start working for Christian Dior. However, if you want a sci-fi, you could do Providence by Max Barry. But if you are after a thriller, then you could do A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, red on the side, red on the string, and it is an amazing YA thriller. Just because I have to throw like an extra one in there. I know it said 5, but Marley and Me, if you really want a tearjerker. 4 includes a journey. You could do Life of Pi by Jan Martel. You could do Returning to Adelaide by Anne Freeman. This is a debut novel following someone who is pretty much travels to Greece on an adventure and rediscovers herself. If you wanted a middle grade, you could do The World Between Blinks by Amy Kaufman and Ryan Gordian. If you wanted a Stephen King, you could do The Talisman by Stephen King. And if you're participating in Chonkalong by Paige, with Paige the Page, who's one of the co-hosts, then you could do Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke, which is the book that they're doing in the Chonkalong Readathon, and it has a journey in it. Now for books that are set in a country that is not my own. So I live in Australia, so I picked books that were obviously all based outside of Australia. But obviously some of these will be based in America, so it may not work for some of my American audience, but I think there's a couple on here that aren't set in America that may help. But the first one is City of Girls by Elizabeth Gilbert. This is a historical fiction that is set in 1940 New York City. We have Pax by Sarah Pennypacker. I don't actually know where this is based, but I'm like 99.9% sure that it is not in Australia. I have a feeling it's somewhere either in America or Europe, if I recall correctly, but I just know it's not in Australia. And it's phenomenal middle grade if you're looking for one. We have The Book Thief by Marcus Zukas. This is 5-star, top tier, amazing book, and it is based in Nazi Germany. We have Frederick Borkman's Beartown. This was obviously translated from an author who lives in Switzerland. So Beartown, I don't know if it's an actual country in Switzerland. I don't know if it is an actual place in Switzerland or not, but this is definitely not from Australia because we don't get snow and ice in Australia. And lastly, you have The Four Winds by Kristen Hanna. This is an art copy, so obviously the cover is different, but this is also based in America, but it is a phenomenal 5-star read. It was my first read of 2022, and it is one of my favorite reads so far this year. So definitely can recommend that one. Lastly, we have a book that features a strong female character. So for this, I can start by recommending Kill Your Brother by Jack Heath. If you've been on this channel for any number of months, years, wherever, you know I absolutely love Jack Heath and his writing, and Kill Your Brother was no different. It was phenomenal, and it has a strong main character who is pretty badass. So yeah, I definitely think that is a good recommendation. Also, it is a thriller, very page turner. Very good page turner, hard to put down. We have Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. Obviously, Riley Sager is always a good thriller writer to pick up if you're looking for something that little bit different. Lock Every Door, I only gave about 3 stars, but the main character is definitely a strong female character. If you're wanting a historical fiction, you could definitely pick up Kristen Hanna, The Nightingale. It has 2 strong female characters in this one, so definitely worth picking up if you're trying to hit this prompt. We have White Smoke by Tiffany D. Jackson. Not only is this spooky, it also has a strong female character who is BIPOC, and the author is also BIPOC as well, so hits multiple different things if you're trying to hit. And if you're looking for something that's not spooky but definitely has a powerful impact when you read it, then you could do White Oleander by Janet Finch, which definitely has a very, 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 very strong female main character. The next team that we are going to attack is Camp Elm Street. Their first prompt is features fire. So for this one, you could do Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ning, Firestarter by Stephen King. I swear there's a Stephen King book that can hit almost every single one of these prompts. Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor. I personally didn't like this series, but I know Pages with Paige is one of her favorites. With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo, if you wanted something more in that contemporary realm. And without having fire in the title, you could read The Daughter of Victory Lights by Kerry Turner. She's an Australian author. This is a historical fiction, and there is a scene in here that involves fire. So it includes fire, so it definitely works for that prompt. Next prompt has claws on the cover. You can read my childhood favorite, which is Holes by Louise Seisha. There is obviously claws on this lizard's feet, so it definitely counts. You have Nevernight by Jay Kristoff. Obviously the bird has claws. You have Dragon Keeper by Carol Wilkinson, which obviously the dragon has claws. We have Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas. Obviously our crow at the front here has some claws, and it is definitely a great read, and it has a lot of pages. So not only will you be getting extra points for stealing, you'll also be getting extra points for extra pages, because I know the more pages you read, the more it helps your team. Lastly, a book I haven't actually read, but I just have on my TBR is The Ravens by Cass Morgan and Danielle Page. It's covered in birds. Birds have claws. I'm gonna call it. For Has Disability Rep, I have one called Hear Me, which is a new one by a middle grade author that is a debut author, and it follows a story of a young girl who has a hearing loss, and her hearing loss is getting progressively worse, and her parents would like her to get a cochlear implant. She doesn't want to, she's in denial, so she tries to get medical emancipation from them so that she doesn't have to get a cochlear implant, and it is her whole journey. Very, very impactfully done and very well done in terms of disability representation. Obviously you have Get a Life Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert, One Day by RJ Palico, one of my personal favorite historical fictions, All the Lights We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr, which follows a blind girl, or one of my favorite childhood reads, which is The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Night by Mark Haddon. This next one, I really struggled to get 5. Like I only got 3. So if you have any suggestions, leave them in the comments, because people will potentially be looking for things that are including in this, because there was not a lot that I could come up with. So this is books that feature sleep, dreams, or nightmares. So the first I could think of would be The Shining by Stephen King. Obviously, it both features nightmares and visions, but it also causes a lot of nightmares in people. So that's how you could maybe twist that one. Stay Awake by Megan Golden, which is one that I have recently read and given 5 stars. It's an amazing thriller that has just come out if you're looking for one that does definitely feature dreams sleep situation, because every time she falls asleep she forgets everything. And then obviously you have Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor, which I know is Brittany's favorite, so I can't recommend it personally, but she has said that it is one of her favorites. Now let's jump over to Team Sunnydale. So our first prompt is books that are set in high school. Now I obviously couldn't go past this prompt without recommending Heartstopper. This entire series is amazing. It's a really quick graphic novel, so you could probably even do all 4 books and hit this prompt 4 times for 4 steals, and it would be worth it. Another one that is a 5-star thriller, amazing Australian author that to this day is one of my favorite books of all time, is The Dry by Jane Hyper. And this is probably one of the best movie adaptations I have ever watched from book to movie. So definitely try and get the movie if you can as well. But The Dry by Jane Hyper is definitely set in a high school, so, well, a portion of it is, so worth a pick up. If you're looking for something a little bit more hard hitting and contemporary, you could do We Need to Talk About Kevin by Lionel Shriver. This obviously is quite tricky in the current state of times that we're going through with how many school shootings there have been recently. But if that is not a trigger warning for you, this is definitely something worth picking up if you feel like you can handle that content. We have Australian author Jess Kitchen. This is also a debut novel for her, The Girl She Was Before. This follows a story of a young girl who was bullied, and then this is kind of like following her story now, but it's like jumps back and forth between her time in high school and what's going on now, and murders happen, and yeah, it's really, really good. I can't say too much without giving spoilers, but definitely involved in a high school setting at some point throughout the book. But if you're just looking for a lighthearted contemporary romance, then I would suggest The Improbable Theory of Anna and Zach by Brian Catcher. This was a 5-star read for me when I picked this up. It had me in absolute stitches. If you are nerdy D&D kind of character as well as a reader, this one will definitely be even better for you than most people, because there's a lot of like nerdy jokes in there that you need to kind of understand that kind of world to understand, but if you haven't, it's still just as good. So yeah, definitely involved in high school. They are on a high school field trip when they decide to leave this trip and go to a like Comic-Con-y type thing. So definitely amazing, fun, 5-star. Our next prompt is anything that is about witches, and I am not the person to make any recommendations for this prompt because every single witch book that I have read that I can remember other than The Witches by Roald Dahl, I have DNF'd, disliked, not liked. I don't think I have one single witchy book that I can recommend. I don't know what it is. They're just not for me. So that is not what I'm going to, so I'm not going to even bother trying to recommend for that prompt. I'm sorry. So for Has a Weapon on the cover, you could do Graceling by Kristen Cushaw. You could do The Book of Ivy by Amy Engel. You could do Malice by John Gwynne, which I know is really popular at the moment. You could pick up The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J Maas if you eventually wanted to start that series. Or you could do my latest 5-star read, which is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang, because she's got a bow on the cover. For strong parental character, you could do The 5 People Who You Meet in Heaven by Mitch Albom. Great read, 5-star, like fantastic. And you don't have to be someone who likes to read about religion to appreciate this book. You could do The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold, Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery, and there is even a graphic novel of this entire story as well. So if you didn't want to do the full story, you could do the graphic novel version and still count it. And in that same vein, you've got Little House on the Prairie by Laura Ingalls Wilder. Oh, if I could re-experience that book for the first time again, I wish. And then obviously, if you want a classic, you've got To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Now let's attack Barb's team, Camp Crystal Lake team. So, slasher. I am not a big slasher reader. It really, I had to do a little bit of perusing to find these 5 recommendations. But One by One by Ruth Ware definitely fits on this category. So that is one I could recommend. It's like a isolated, snowy thriller. His and Hers by Alice Feeney. I have not read, but is on my TBR, and I have been informed that this falls under the slasher category. One I can definitely recommend, 100%. I don't have my copy at the moment because I have lent it to my dad to read, is The Hunted by Gabrielle Berg-Moser. I will recommend this to anyone who asks me for a thriller recommendation. You have #Murder Trending by Gretchen McNeil. This is very much a last man standing slasher / reality TV show kind of book. And then obviously Clown in the Cornfield by Adam Cesare. Cesare. This one. For Set Outdoors. You all know what my first recommendation is going to be. The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. It wouldn't be a recommendation video without this somehow ending up hitting one of the prompts. My next door neighbor has not mowed his lawn in I don't know how fucking long, and he chooses to do it while I'm in the middle of filming. So I'm sorry if you can hear that. Like, his backyard literally is full of weeds. Full of weeds. That's how long it's been since he's bothered. Other things that are set outdoors would be Where the Crawdad Sings by Delia Owens, Station 11 by Emily St. John's Mandel, which I don't have my copy because I've kindly re-gifted it to somebody else. Lord of the Flies by William Golding. And if you are after a graphic novel, I can recommend Paper Girls by Brian Vaughan. Now, for our YA titles, a lot of these are not going to be scary. I'm sorry, but I don't really read scary YA very often. I don't really read scary in general. I read thriller, but I am looking to start a more horror. So maybe this is my reasoning to do it, because I'm realizing a lot of these recommendations are scary. So first is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. Don't bother with the sequel. This is all you need to read. Pretend that this is a standalone. The Gravity of Us by Phil Stamper, or pretty much anything by Phil Stamper, I can recommend. You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson, or anything by Leah Johnson. Legend by Mari Lou, or White Stag by Cara Berberet. So prompt for features of Final Girl. I don't have many, but Gav from How to Train Your Gavin has released a video called 20 horror books that will hit my Final Girl craving, and I'm sure it would have some suggestions, so I will link that down below if you're looking for some Final Girl options. And for Monster on the Cover, I only have a couple to suggest, and unfortunately they're both dirty romances because that's my channel. No, I'm just kidding. But we have The Dragon's Bride by Katie Roberts, and we have I Married a Lizard Man by Regina Bell, because they're the only ones I can think of that have monsters on the cover. But I mean, depends what you classify as a monster. So there you have it. They're all my recommendations. I hope there's something here that helped you be able to make a steal. Go Team Haddonfield. Let's get this started. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you've made it this far and you don't have a comment to drop down below, then if you can just put a pumpkin emoji down below to celebrate Halloween and Team Haddonfield, that would be fantastic. Until next time, give this video a big thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already, because I'd love to have you join the fam. And happy reading. Bye.